And welcome everyone to this month's Connect with Remedy webinar. This is actually a special session, and we're going to cover the best practices for loading and migrating data in the ITSM solution. And before we get started, I just wanted to make sure if you have any questions during the presentation, you're able to ask them to our panelists in the Q&A pod of this WebEx. And if you have any audio issues, you can press *0 to speak to an operator to help get those resolved. We're going to start off with Murali. He will take us through the agenda, and then we'll get started on our presentation. Murali?
Thanks, Greg. Hi, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Murali Viswanathan. I'm a lead product developer for ITSM. So today's agenda, we're going to go through all our supported data management tools. We want to review each tool and its supported use cases, and then give you all the references you would need for the use case, for the usage and troubleshooting, and all the information will be in the references for these various tools which we're going to discuss. And these references would also have some webinars and videos information as well, followed by which we will do our Q&A. So what are the supported data management tools do we have today? So this slide is just to give you a refresher. So we have the Atrium Integrator console, which allows you to create jobs and load data into CMDB as a primary use case. And we have our data management console, which allows you to load data from any system or any remedy, non-remedy system, as long as you have the data populated in our spreadsheet with the required data we ask for. The data could be loaded in there. And then we have our data migration process and tools, which basically is our staged upgrade and again other ways of us supporting data migration capabilities. So the tool we have is DDM, which has a framework of migrator. And then we're going to jump into our data wizard console, which tells you how you can modify a company name or support group name through our console. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our AS system deployment management console and our SRM Import export console. With that, there's a slight change in the way we're going to present. So I'm going to jump directly into a data management topic, and then we'll circle back to the Atrium Integrator console topic. Sorry, I'm going fast because I just want to make sure that I go. So data migration. So what are the supported data migration scenarios and use cases which BMC supports out of the box? So the primary we support is the state server or remedy suite upgrade use case, wherein you basically upgrade your remedy environment in a non-production environment, and then so let's say it takes you a few days to upgrade, and then basically this. Sorry, I have a bad cold today, so apologize for that. So this data migration tool we have is basically will help you to migrate the Delta data from your production server to the new production server, which will be the staging server. And then we also support on-premise remedy instance to on-demand migration. So the on-demand migration, which we call it, which is our remedy. BMC hosts our own SaaS environment, which we call it remedy on-demand. So basically, the process and tool helps you to migrate data from an on-premise to an on-demand. So the on-demand environment could be a remedy SaaS environment, or it could be other cloud environments as well. It does not matter. So similarly, in line to that, we also do support a fresh install and data migration. I want to be careful there because we don't want all customers to do that. The reason for that is so that's defined for a specific use case, which I'll be covering in the next slide. So the state server remedy suite upgrade. So as I told you, where we have a tool out of the box called Delta Data Migrator, which can be used as is, because that was designed specifically for this purpose, where it'll basically, by following the pre-steps and running the tool, will allow you to get the Delta data migrated as quickly as possible. And this is the topic I wanted to cover, where we do support fresh install and data migration. If you really want to use this process, we have a white paper available, which can be made available per request, which because this process does have some pre-migration steps which you need to follow, which will take at least a few days for you to prepare and follow before you hit the button. So the process is available on request, and by the time you get this deck to you in a format after the webinar, we'll make sure that the process is also available in our community so that you could just go there and follow it. The next data management topic I'm going to hit on is our data management tool console, which, by the way, so for what do we support here? So primarily we have a console called Data Management Console, as you all may be aware of, from where we basically help you to onboard foundation, process, and transactional data. So process data consists of templates and whatnot, right? And then we also support a LDAP template. The reason we call it as a template is because we build this template based on the fields and connections available with the in-house Active Directory. So this template could be used by end users by making a copy of it and making sure that the fields are the same in their Active Directory. And as long as the fields are being reviewed and mapped, all you have to do is specify your host name for your Active Directory and the connection parameters, and we have a design framework which will basically do the connection and pull in the data for you. So from the console, from a data management tool perspective, there's two ways you could load data, right? One is once you navigate to the console, you'll have two options to go through. One is called an Onboarding Wizard option, and the other option will be the console option, right? So the Onboarding Wizard option basically is a guided method where it'll guide you to create your companies and support groups and people data. It's mainly only for foundation, basically. That's what that particular option supports. So it'll guide you through it for you to create your companies and support groups and people data manually. Or it also has an option where you could upload a spreadsheet and it can process those as well. From the Data Management Console link, once you get in there, we do support foundation data, process and template data, as well as transactional data. So we have various spreadsheets for each of those forms and areas which you could populate and get the data loaded into our ITSM suite. So going back to a little bit more info of a lot of customers and even our consultants ask us hey, what is the difference between DDM and UDM, and can we mix both and migrate data or onboard data? So just these next few slides will help you understand the tool, how it works, and so that you can make your decision, right? So what does Delta Migration do, and how does it operate? So the way the Delta Migration works is basically to migrate your data from one remedy instance to another remedy instance by maintaining its ID. So what that means is, for example, I'm migrating some data for a form. We basically make sure that the data is migrated as is, preserving all the request IDs and the unique index references and all that. So basically, we don't generate request IDs on the destination server. The reason is this is your golden data, right? So if you take a step back and look at this process, so what you're doing is you're basically stopping your production server, right? And you're going live with your staging server. So that means your staging server, before you go live, should get all the Delta data if at the time it took for you to perform the upgrade on a staging server. So that means that data is golden. So basically, we want to make sure that the end user doesn't see any difference, right, when they go live with the new system. So their IDs and the relationship and the functionality should work as is. So that's why we call this process a migration process, and that's the reason there are some prerequisites where you don't do certain things, and you basically make sure that nobody's accessing those servers and no processes are running. So we do all that on the staging server so that the data is not compromised and there's no data integrity issues coming up, right? So for that matter, So we make sure that during the data migration process, we move the data as is. And how do we do that? So, for example, when I'm migrating when I'm migrating a record, I look at two fields there. So one is the unique index field or fields defined for the form, because some forms might have multiple fields which form a unique index, right? So we use that with a combination of field ID 1. So basically, when we always take those two information and try to take the data to the other side, and then we see if that record exists with the same ID and the same unique index value. If it does, we update, right? If it does not, we create, right? Let's say for some reason the field ID 1 is compromised and it's being used by another record, so we don't make the decision. We give a merge entry ID mismatch error. So that way the customer can go check that data and make sure that if it's a bad data, he can delete it. If it's something he needs, he could take a backup, right, export it and delete it temporarily, and then re-import it back later after the data migration is completed, right? So basically, the summary is that data migration has to be used for migration purposes, and you should not combine different tools like UDM or AR import tools in the mix, because then your data will be compromised. So how does the UDM or the data loading onboarding work? So here, this again, the first point I want to make sure that it's not a migration tool, right? So what is this tool is used for? This tool is basically designed and made available for getting your data which is not inside Remedy, right, as quickly as possible. Let's say, for example, you have some people data, or coming from some other application, or you have some quick tickets you want to bring into the ITSM systems and whatnot. So this basically will be the tool you should be using. So basically, we have a out-of-the-box spreadsheets available, which each spreadsheet will clearly define the required fields and the optional fields, and so that you can populate them and you can load the data. And so the tool is designed to get the data loaded and not for the end-to-end life cycle of a ticket or a record you move in. The example I'm giving you, let's say you load in a people data, and let's say you change that person to a support person, right? And then you attach tickets to him and whatnot, right? And later, you basically, if you override that person record as a non-support person, for example, then all his child tickets and whatnot will get orphaned. So we don't want that scenario. So end of the day, we want to make sure that the tool is wisely used to get the data into our Remedy suite, and then use our product to go through its life cycle. For example, if you're bringing in a ticket, bring it in a draft mode or a non-assign mode, so that you can assign the ticket, get it worked and completed within the life cycle of our product, right? So going through this quickly. So it's not a migration tool. It only supports update for people data. Everything else is only we only support creates, and it always creates data with new IDs. So, for example, you have an option where you could pick multiple spreadsheets, for example, you could run a job for including company, support group, people, templates, all that in one job. So what happens is it basically does a sequencing behind the scenes, and it creates those IDs, and it uses those references. For example, it creates a company, and then when you wrote people record with that company, it goes and checks if the company exists and makes sure that it exists, and then it loads your people data, right? So the sequencing is already built in, so you don't have to worry about what to load first, what to load second, because the tool is capable of giving you those validation errors. So what do we have? We have spreadsheets. As I said, we have spreadsheets for most of our foundation templates and transactional data, and we also support a LDAP template. Again, the key I'm saying that it's a template is because it's not something you can just use out of the box. So you have to use the template, make sure that it's working for your scenario, and make sure you do the field mappings and add the qualifications you need to bring data from the Active Directory. The one other important thing I want to stress on the LDAP template is it's only for non-support staff data load, and also I want to emphasize that make sure that you don't go over the fields we have out of the box. For example, we support like a few fields, like 14 plus fields, I believe we support. So which are directly on the people form itself. So if you're going to pick up a field, for example, like suppose staff, for example, then it has effects where because it has a lot of dependencies and whatnot, right? So be careful in making sure that you pick up fields or you modify fields which are directly impacting only the people form, right? This is a quick slide to just give you those differences on a screen. So DDM versus UDM. So one is a data migration tool, one is a data load tool. Please don't mix these tools. And plus again, even like AR import tool is already there, as you guys know. So yeah, don't mix these tools. Make sure if you go in one direction, please go with that direction and complete it. That way, you will have less issues with your data integrity and complexities. Another data management topic I'm going to cover today is our Data Wizard console. So we put this together where people would come and say, hey, we have to rename our company from A to B. We have now moved our support group from this location to another location. Now the name changed, right? So this tool or this console will guide you to do that. For example, it makes a permanent change for a company or a group. So we have to make sure that it's if you want to do something temporary, don't use this tool, right? So it's going to make a permanent change. And then it changes all the references and all supported products. For example, if you change a name from company A to company B, it's going to go through the foundation forms like the company, support groups, site and whatnot, wherever it's referenced. And it's also going to go through all your transactional areas like incident, problem, change, SRM, work orders, everywhere. And it's going to change RKM. It's going to change all the references for wherever you see the company. The company could be in a customer company field or a contact company field or a vendor or a manufacturer. It doesn't matter. It's going to go change all those references. So what does this support? So it supports, as I said, company, person name, login ID, all the categorization we support, and then site and site group, site name, site information, support group. So this is what it supports. So basically, you basically go do it one by one, right? So because it's not something you want to do it for multi things at a time, because people are logged in, people will be using it and all that, right? So one other thing we do recommend is you don't need to have an outage for this, but make sure that if you're changing someone's login ID, make sure that person is not logged in, right? So make sure that you run this off hours, right? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think with that, I'm going to pass it on over to my colleague, Brigid. And then from there, we'll go back to the Atrium Integrator topics, which will be covered after that. Over to you, Brigid.
Thanks, Murali. So let me start and go through, hello everyone, and let me go through the SRM supported import and export methods. So we're going to be stepping through two different consoles here, and let me clarify that Air System Deployment Management Console has sometimes informally been referred to as D2P, so you may have heard it as referred to as that. And with this console, in 9.1 onwards, there is an option that supports the movement of SRM data, SRDs and the like, but it is capable of moving many different types of data and objects, and they range from packing lists, definition data, regular data, and then most recently in 9104, this console can also support the movement of task management system, task templates, and task group templates. Now, so it's definitely going to do more than what I'm covering in today's webinar. So that's the first console, and then the second console that we will be covering is the SRM Import Export console, which has been available for all SRM versions. So these are the main two methods. So let me just go through the SRM objects that are covered by this export and import in both cases. Firstly, the service request definition, which is referred to as the SRD, that option when it's selected for an export, will also bring with it it's related to the PDTs and the AOTs and other related objects to those. And then to define the second option, process definition, the definition template refers to a PDT, and if it was selected, would export with it the application object templates, which is referred to as AOTs, and again, they're related objects. So we have three main options: SRD, PDT, and then lastly, if you select supporting data, all of the supporting data is data relevant to the SRM defined time objects that are in use. So the supporting data encompasses survey questions, service request images, navigational categories, people entitlement data, questions, packages, and SRD level. And so in the both options, it is available as supporting data, and there's a slight difference maybe over its packaging, but that I will cover. So let's also go through some process terminology that's common. So staging forms are used by the import and export methods, and for SRM, these staging forms have a namespace prefix of SRD:stage. And the process of this involves the staging, validation, and the promotion of data on the import. There are two main methods. It can be automated or manual, and this is where there's a distinction in the consoles. And then lastly, the merge data operation, just to clarify what it consists of. So when you are performing a merge data operation, you are existing objects are getting updated, new objects are getting created, and obsolete objects are deleted. So just to clarify what that is doing. Let's take a closer look at the deployment management console. So as I mentioned, that this has been available for SRM usage since 9.1, but over the course of the console, different object, we refer to them as content types, but there's a consistent user experience available if you use this console, be it whichever content type you are exporting. So you can export and import from this console, and the deployment package content type you would be selecting is SRM, and by selecting that, you're then given the choices of the whether it's SRD, PDT, or supported data. In this method, all the supported data is exported and imported as one package. There's no breakdown of the different distinct types of supported data. This console is on import is supporting the merge data operation only. And this is really the console, the recommended method to use for most use cases. This is what I think is going to be suitable. The package files that are created on the export and are local to the client, and equally you just need them local to you for import. So that's an added advantage. This method supports rollback. And lastly, the deployment manager role can be used for this operation, or you can also obviously perform it with Air administrator permissions. But again, this is the recommended method to use for importing and exporting. Now let's take a closer look at the SRM Import-Export console, which has been in existence for all versions, so probably should be quite familiar to many of you. The merge operation is the default option that is available on import. This is really an advanced console, so it's really probably the console you're going to be used if you want to take advantage of all these advanced import options that are available. These import options can allow you to import new definitions only. You can cancel then if existing definitions are found. You're able to import new definitions with the skip duplicates feature. You can add, the definitions with a new prefix, and you can lastly import the definitions to a new company. So it's because of this extra import advanced options, that's why you might come in and use this console. The other additional distinction here is that you have some manual control over the validation, and you can separate that from promotion. You can separately then promote. So you have that as well as an advanced feature to interact with. The files that are created for export and also that need to be used at import they're only on the server, so they have to be placed on the server for accessibility. And then lastly, the AR administrator permission is what's needed here for use with this console.
Murali, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, we're slide 5. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. So as we were explaining, our Atrium Integrator expert couldn't join the call due to some technical issues. We apologize, but I'll try to cover this. And then if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us by various channels, and Greg will cover that soon after this. So what can we do with our Atrium Integrator console, which we have out of the box? So this primarily allows you to get data imported into CMDB classes. So the AI console is capable of basically creating CMDB CIs, CIs and CMDB classes, CMDB, and then it also allows you to do updates. It has checksum features and all that. Let me see if I can move this slide here. And it basically has a wizard, right? It basically has a wizard which allows you to transfer data into key CMDB classes. Provides a structure you can refine later using AI Spoon. So basically, the backend which is used is a Spoon client, which basically is Pentaho, where you have transformation jobs available, and that's what that point is referring to. And then the job can be scheduled via the console itself, and as I said, you can do Delta, which basically you can modify records. You could I know there's also options where you can even do partial updates within CMDB itself. Next slide. Sorry, yeah. So as I said, we have a Spoon client which gets installed out of the box through any AR installation, right? So with the Spoon client, it's basically a desktop designer tool, and it's part of our Pentaho platform. Of course, it's a client because it does get installed as a client. So here you will see, like, even the applications have consumed the AI as well. So if you go look at repositories, you'll also see the out of the box jobs and transformations as well from Spoon for Atrium Integrator as well as for the application. So you'll have a job and you'll have a transformation. So how does Spoon work? It has a capability of extracting reading data from a source. It transforms the data. So the transformation means you will have different steps, like an input. So the primary step is an input step and the output step. So between the input step and output step, you could do a lot of validations, checks, and whatnot. You can, for example, you can add a step for a field and say only allow these values. If it's not any of these values, then don't push the data. You can add an error handling step as well, wherein let's say there's a selection field value which you're only having 1 to 5, and someone gets in a 6. You can error handle the data, and then even with the error handler, you can notify the person as well and send an email with those records as well. So all that could be done from the Spoon client, right? And then to use for special cases, right? Custom transformation of data, qualifications, tuning. So that's exactly what I was trying to say, where you could add more steps in the transformation, and then you can do more validations, right? We go to the next one. So what are the best practices? So the console only supports import of data into CMDB using the wizard. As I said, the framework, the framework of Pentaho, the transformations and the jobs, plus the framework of Atrium Integrator itself, which is a plugin, it's all consumed by applications. So that's how we were able to come up with our data management console, or the support of SRM export import, which primarily uses the same Pentaho framework behind the scenes. Spoon is a UI through which you can log in and look at these transformations. And then again, we do not recommend anybody to update or work with our out-of-the-box transformations or jobs. And if at all you need to do that, make a copy of it. And when you customize, make sure you customize the transformation, the job, the spreadsheet, and any needed workflows and whatnot, right? Because even you may have to overlay the form as well to add a field and whatnot, right? So make sure you follow it through and don't miss any step, right? That's basically what the last point says, right? Use the best practices method. There's a lot of references in doc pages and communities. Again, as I said, we don't recommend you to customize. When I say that, we have Atrium Integrator console to load data into CMDB. We have spreadsheet model, which is consumed by the applications for you to load data into our products. And the more reason we do not want you to directly access a form like a people form or incident form or SRM form and directly push it is because there's a lot of functionalities, dependencies, and everything. So we want to make sure that the data you're bringing in makes sense and it's not creating any downside effect in your system, right? So that's more reason where we have a design. So for example, for applications to consume these features, we have to do a design on top of it, right? To make sure that we use a staging form and whatnot and do all the validations before we actually push the data into the target forms, right? Because once the data is in the target form, it's very hard for us to go do a cleanup because there's no easy one tool available to do that. And because our applications are so large and so have a lot of dependencies with each other, it becomes a complex situation. So what I would highly recommend is if you don't see anything, if you need something and it's a common use case, please update our communities and we'll make sure that if something is needed and it's a gap, we will address it in the future releases. And I think that's pretty much it. And so thank you, Greg. So we are now looking into our references page here. So this page has all the references for Atrium Integrator. So if you see there are different documentations for Spoon on Spoon and then on Pentaho. So these are third-party products as well, which we've consumed. So that way, that's the reason we are giving you direct information on those areas as well. And then from our documentation, if you see, we have covered our Atrium Integrator documentation, and we have some videos you could look at. And we also did a webinar on in-depth on Atrium Integrator, which you could also refer to. And these are the references for both our data migration and data management or data load use cases and tools. So again, there is docs pages, there's videos, there's overviews, there's configuration. So the configuration is one of the important steps, I would say, because most of them are done out of the box, and then there are config checks we do once you launch the consoles, for example, for data management, and we do check different things. But I would still recommend you to just go through those to make sure that everything is set right, and especially if you're in a server group environment, make sure that if you look at I'm going to point here, the second link there, that'll help you to understand what you should see for a server group configuration for UDM for it to work properly. So that just go through that, refer that, make sure it's all done right, and then then you should be good. And these references are for our SRM product, where Brigid covered about SRM export import and the use case for the air system deployment management console use cases for SRM export import as well. So those links are covered here. And to our summary. So what did we cover today? We went through our data management processes and tools which we support out of the box and the various use cases. And the primary reason for this is we want to make sure that everybody understands our use cases and our best practices, so that even if you want to customize, go through our best practices, ask the right questions before you do it, and not after the fact, because it becomes difficult for everybody, right? So yeah, hope this helps. This helped you. So make sure you understand the tools available and its use cases, and please use it for those use cases which we supported and the supported scenarios, right? So the CMDB data imports, or our ITSM data loads and data wizard consoles, and our SRDs, all those. Please, as I said, we have covered everything which is needed for the product, and if there's a gap, please go to the communities. We'll be more than happy to put that in our backlog and try to address it as soon as possible. And again, for customization best practices, each of these areas have links or documentation sections which will help you to address them. And if you have any further questions, you can always reach out to us. Again, the sooner the better. So I would rather you help you reach out to us proactively rather than reactively, of course, right? So that'll help everybody. I think with that, I give it back to Greg, I guess. Greg.
Thank you, Murali, and thank you, Brigid, for the great presentation. And at this point, we'll take you into some live Q&A. Kelly, will you be able to provide instructions to our callers for asking questions?
Certainly. At this time, if you do have a question, that will be *1. A voice prompt on your phone line will indicate once your line has been opened. And again, *1 for questions. We'll pause for just a moment. And again, that is *1 for any questions at this time. We'll take our first caller. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hello. We are in the process of moving from 7604 to 91, but we are moving platforms at the same time. So a creation of a staging database via backup and restore is not going to be feasible. Is that what the white paper covers?
Yeah, I could take that, Greg. Hi, I'm Murali here. So, for example, when you say platform, you're moving from one database to another. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're moving from something like DB2 to Microsoft SQL Server. So we can't do the normal staging migration where we create a database by basically backing up the production and restoring to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the use cases the white paper will definitely cover. So as I said, we'll make sure that before the webinar, basically what we do is we post this webinar, right, and the slide deck. So before we do that, I'll make sure that the communities page is created for that, and we'll provide a link on this deck for you. So that's how it works, right, Greg? We can do that, right, Greg?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we actually spoke with BMC support because we tried to do it without a white paper because we didn't know it existed. And so we used the data migrator, not the DDM, to move all the data, all the tables that we could find, or all the forms that we could find. And that resulted in some form of inconsistency within the data. So we contacted BMC support, and they suggested that we delete the companies that we had migrated over using the data migrator and create new companies, and suggested that everything would link back up again. Actually, what's happened is we've ended up with some aspects being pointed to the new companies and some aspects pointing to the old companies. So it's a very inconsistent database at this point. What would your recommendation be? Start from scratch, or with the white paper, or attempt to fix something?
It's very hard to say at a very high level, right, because we need to know the low-level details of exactly what was done and what's the gap to address it. But again, always the option is to if you can get to a clean state and you can get this migrated. So what I've seen, I personally done this for many customers, to be very honest. So the preparation is the key, right? Let's say it takes a week or so to prepare all that, make sure that everything is good. We're going to go. The actual process will take you to even get all the data migrated. Just for the migration piece itself, will take you less than 10 days. Right, so that's for example, if you are looking at time frame from here, within 2 weeks you'll be in a shape where you are. rather, if you're even going with the approach of cleanup and doing it, it'll also take you 2 weeks. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Okay. And so how quickly can we get the white paper posted?
Greg?
Yeah, if you could go ahead and email me with your contact information, we could, have a conversation of getting that information to you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much.
We'll take our next caller. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello, Peter. I have just a short question I put in Q&A. There is the step R's output and R setup, or what's the name? And if I send 0 values or null, the values are not updated. And this is already years. And it's open idea, I think so. So is there some plan when this functionality will be implemented? Or?
Sorry, which product are you referring to? Sorry, we're not audible clearly. What product were you referring to?
It's called Atrium Integrator. Yeah. And if you are using the step R output or R setup or what's the name, then if you send 0 or empty value or null, then these values are not updated. Yeah? So you want to make updates. I don't know. I have some middle name, for example, and this middle name should be deleted or removed. So
what I would recommend is, sorry to interrupt. What I would recommend is, I'm not able to get this clearly. So if you don't mind, can you please create a support case on this, right? And then you can email Greg once you have the case, and hopefully the support will be able to help you directly. But if you feel that it's not moving, please copy Greg, and we'll see what we can do there. But I would definitely recommend support case. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need support case. Yeah, this is known thing. I discussed this with Gustavo, and there is an idea for 3 years or 4 years in communities, and everybody knows this. Yeah, and the implementation started or something like this. Yeah, I got this information from Gustavo. Yeah? But nobody can say when it will be really implemented. Yeah. So from my point of view, it's clearly a bug. Yeah, but okay, it works as designed. But yeah, I wanted to have some date. Yeah. Is this 1 year, 3 years again, or?
Yeah. If the community post you're referring to, again, as I said, if you can reply that, put that information to us, we'll definitely look at that to see where it stands, because the decision is made by our product managers, so they would be the best person to get back to you.
Okay, thanks all.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question. And caller, if you heard the voice prompt, your line is open. Here with no response, we'll move to our next caller.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a migration guide from going from Remedy 7.6.04 to 9.1.01. We found one for migration or migrator, the migrator tool for 7.5, but nothing higher than that.
Sorry, Murali here. Sorry. So you're talking about a stage migration? Stage upgrade.
It's a complete upgrade. It's basically a coworker of mine had described it a little bit earlier. We're going from 7.604 in AIX DB2 platform to 9.101 in Windows SQL Server.
Yeah. So I'll send you the process for that. Definitely, the white paper will help you. But again, regarding the tool, always use our latest tool. For example, you should be downloading AR Migrator 9.104 or 9.103, whatever is the latest, and that's capable of. It has backwards support till 7.1, because that's what we support in data migration. We support all the way from 7.1 till now. So the answer is yes. The latest migrator tool will support your use case.
And the latest one is 9.104?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We'll take our next question.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Mine's just a general question. We have customers that just want to do bulk CMDB updates. Just trying to find out, based on these best practices, which is the right tool we should use for, a customer that has 100 CI if they just want to update.
What version are they in? Are you in? What's your CMDB version? Do you know?
9.1.
Okay. So when you say bulk updates, so basically you want to do partial updates for CIs, and does those updates only needed on CMDB, or does it also propagate to asset as well?
Well, CMDB and asset.
Yeah. Okay. For example, if you have a CI, if you have a CI where the attributes are local to CMDB, right? Then you can use AI console and use the jobs and that way, right? And if you again, that will AI console has the feature of doing updates and inserts, right? Wherein if you want to do for CIs as well. For example, CIs which has the asset lifecycle attributes as well, then you have to use the data management console and populate your CIs. Again, there we don't support updates from a high level. When I say that, for example, let's say you populate 20 attributes, right, and then create the CI. Right. So if you want to update, let's say even let's say part number, for example, right, you still have to go and populate all the 20 fields and then change the part number. Then it'll work. So that's how we have it, because the tool was never designed for updates, right? So but it can do updates in the way I described to you. But you have to pre-populate all the data, including recon ID and whatnot, all the key references, plus whatever you want to change. You just need to change that. So if let's say you forgot to populate a field which you've already had value, then that will go as null. So you don't want that, right? So that's the only way we have currently to create or update CIs which has attributes both in CMDB and in the asset side. As far as performance of bulk is concerned, I'd like to address that as well. It depends on where you are. Like, for example, if you're doing in your production system, we definitely want to do it on a time where people are off the system, maybe a Friday evenings or the weekends, wherein because this will require a restart, where you have to configure to use more threads. Let's say by default we only use 6 threads, right? So you might have to use 12 or 32 threads or whatever, right? Because you want to use AR just to process your stuff, right? If you want to, again, I'm talking about hundreds and thousands of, 100,000s and whatever range I'm talking about, right? If you want to do that, you may have to restart twice, because you have to change the threading to a higher number, and then load your data and then revert it back, so that before folks come in on Monday, you want AR to be available for other processes as well. And there is a doc page link where we talk about performance and benchmarks. So I'll see if I can add that to the reference link when we send this to you.
Okay, thanks. So basically, AI Council is what we should use. If it's a large number of records, we should use AI Council in the evenings, and DMT we could use, but it's one of those things where we'd have to have all the fields populated, not just that one data.
AI Console only supports CMDB though. So for example, if you have some attributes in that class in the CI which has data for asset lifecycle attributes, then AI Console will not work for you.
Which is the solution if it's in the ASD attributes?
Yeah, then you have to use our data management console. The DMT or UDM tool is what you need to use.
Okay. All right. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll take our next question.
Yeah, hi. We have Service Desk, so we don't have the full asset management suite. We have what's called Asset Lite by you all. And we've run into an issue. We also don't have discovery tools. We've run into an issue where we have updates from a vendor when we purchase CIs and cannot load them because the UDM doesn't support in inventory as a status. I posted in the Q&A section in the chat a link to an article in BMC Communities about how to address this, and it's been since 2013. If we can't address it that way, then I what I've been working on is trying to create a spoon job that will address it. Is there any plans to update the CI transactional spreadsheet so that it can go through the UDM and the recon job within Atrium to address in-inventory status?
In inventory. That sounds familiar. I thought I don't know. So that community post you said it's still not. Sorry, I'm trying to go through the Q&A. I'm not able to find that link. Probably I'll find it after the call or whatever.
Yeah, the version is that if you try to load something in an in-inventory status, if you bring up the item within asset management, it gives it that same error still that's listed in that article.
Oh, okay. Yeah, unfortunately we won't be able. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's also a secondary issue in that if I use the CI transactional spreadsheet, with the data manager to try and update like a location for an asset, it doesn't update the site and the room number, for example. The weights are the same in the recon job.
Do we have those attributes which you described in the spreadsheet already available?
Yes,
okay.
They're in the spreadsheet.
Okay. If they're in the spreadsheet and it's not updating, I would definitely recommend you create a case for that, and then we'll look into that. Okay. And what version are you using?
9.1.3.
Okay. Okay.
But that article that I referred to, it seems like that ought to be a stock offering, because there has to be other clients that have vendors that provide them with a spreadsheet, right? And the asset may not be deployed, but if it's in inventory, the workflow requires that you put it in a specialty location, but the spreadsheet doesn't address that specialty location. So after you've loaded it, every record you look at has an error.
Okay. So is this asset CI loading? What do you say? Is it you're expecting it to be reconciled immediately, or you basically want to put it into CMDB and then normalize it and whatnot, and then reconcile later? So what is your use case? Because typically the way the spreadsheet is done is we basically want data which is ready to go into asset, right?
Yeah, well,
for example, we only support the production data set, right? That's what the whole idea about the spreadsheet is. We don't support sandbox.
Yes, well, but the thing is that it does, well, it is production data because you have it at an in-inventory location.
Okay.
Right? It's not being deployed yet. You're going to deploy it.
Yeah, that use case we need to look at it because, anyway, I don't want to comment because I don't know the low-level details of it. So please, if you have a case already open, please.
Ticket and specify it in the ticket, and I'll mention the article in the support request as well.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure that, we'll talk to the support person and we'll ask them to get back to you. And what are the options?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question. And again, if you hear the voice prompt, your line is open to ask your question. And hearing no response, there are no other questions at this time.
Okay, well, thank you, and we'll take everybody through the wrap-up of this special webinar, contacting BMC via the social channels, as well as contacting BMC support through web, phone, email, as well as our knowledge base available through the support portal. This webinar will be posted within a week of today's live session, and the white paper that Murali mentioned will also be linked into that posting with all the references that were displayed during this presentation. And I wanted to thank you for joining. And any questions that were asked during this webinar will be posted along with that webinar recording. Thank you.